Soma was an ugly, disgusting, worthless piece of garbage, who was isekai'd out of his miserable life to become the hero, and rebuilt the kingdom while cheating on the hot princess with all the chicks in his harem. On the day when this dickhead was finishing his final exams, the magicians activated the forbidden summoning spell, and a magical sigil teleported him to the other world, sending him falling from the sky. As he thought he was about to die, he flashed into their room and landed before the wizards, but the faces wondered why their hero had to be this ugly. As he walked inside of the throne room, everyone stared at him like a criminal. However, the queen continued to smile like a circus freak, but the king decided to reveal the truth about why they summoned him. Their kingdom of Elfridin was located on a supercontinent known as Landia, but the Demon's Lord's armies began raiding nearby countries and claiming their lands. Because of their efforts in battling the demons, the Chaos Empire commanded all of the other countries to send them money so that they could improve the quality of their armed forces. After listening to this story, Soma knew more about the continent's diverse history, but he still didn't understand how all of the crap that the king had just said was related to him in any way. The kingdom's prime minister, Marx, explained that because their country was so strapped for cash at the moment, they had to figure out another way to pay the Grand Chaos Empire. However, when the rulers consulted the gods for help, they realized that the only way out was by summoning a dumb hero that they could present as a servant to the Grand Chaos Empire. Soma was furious to hear that his abductors were also planning on turning him into a slave, and Soma felt totally screwed when he realized that the Empire might try to turn him into a lab rat for their experiments. He wondered if it was a smart idea to escape, but when Marx said that they have the highest security to protect their walls from invasions, he realized that he had no way of escaping. So trying to save them, he revealed that they should simply build enough might to refuse the other kingdom's demands, and they needed to fix the country's financial problems first. After everyone thought he might have a plan, Soma sat down with Marx and the royal couple to discuss their plans on how to improve Elfridin's wealth. So after 3 days of studying their financial assets, King Alfred declared that he was stepping down from his position and handing over the affairs of the kingdom to Soma. Alfred also announced that his daughter Lycia would be marrying the new king, and the news of Soma's ascension to the throne quickly spread to all the different states of the nation. When she heard this strange story, the princess quickly rushed over to the palace because she thought that the so-called hero had managed to snatch the throne away from her dim-witted dad. However, Lycia was shocked when Alfred told her that he had made the decision for Soma to become king, because he believed that the young man would be a better ruler than he was. Not satisfied with this answer, the princess marched over to meet the new king, but when she walked through the door, Soma thought that she was a cosplay artist who had come to fulfill his fantasies. However, Lycia proudly declared herself as the heir to the throne of Elfridin, calling him an imposter, so Soma explained that her father had forced him to become the king. He went on to reveal that he only agreed to become the king in order to save himself from turning into a slave for the Chaos Empire, and that he had no problem if she wanted to cancel their wedding right away. Hearing those words, Lycia apologized because she had no idea how useless her father was, so she asked Soma how he planned on raising the money to pay up their debt to the Grand Chaos Empire. Soma told her that he had already made the money by selling off some of the kingdom's precious jewels to a young jewelry merchant living in the country of Amadonia. Lycia was initially furious when she heard this, because the jewels were a national treasure, but Soma explained that he had only sold the ones that had less value to the kingdom's status. Asking him if he had sent the money yet, Soma said that he wanted to delay the payment for a while, so Lycia advised him to pump all the money into their country's military instead. However, Soma told her that it would be wiser for them to spend the money on providing food and other basic needs to the people, as to prevent the citizens from starting a rebellion. But when Lycia thought that her people would never rebel, he revealed that any citizen's first priority is food, as people couldn't care less about others if they're hungry. Hearing those words, she realized that he really was a realist, and hoped he would save their kingdom. After 1 month of being king, Soma realized that most of the country's technology depended on magic, and that transportation was mainly provided by the use of giant mythical creatures. While he was in the throne room, the high priest met up with Soma, advising him to take a magical test to determine if he had been given any powers on the day that he was summoned. They moved over to a little prayer room, where the priest told Soma to touch the head of an ancient gargoyle that would confirm his magical aura and reveal exactly what his powers were. After performing the ritual, Soma was confused on what to do with his newfound abilities, so he just went back to work, and Lycia decided to pay him a surprise visit. However, when she got into the office, Lycia was shocked to see 3 feather pens scribbling down notes on their own, and Soma told her that he was controlling the objects with magic. He explained that his new powers allowed him to transfer his consciousness into multiple objects that were nearby and control them independently. Lycia was creeped out by this power, and Soma tried to explain that it could make their honeymoon 4 times as fun.
What do you mean by that?
But he switched up and said that it made his paperwork easier instead. Asking what he and all the staff were up to, Soma told Lycia that they were digging through the financial reports of the country to find any tax evaders or cases of misused funds. This way, they could increase the kingdom's revenue even more by recovering any money that was stolen from the nation's budget, and also arrest all of the corrupt leaders involved. Lycia was shocked that he was willing to do all of that just for the sake of a country that he never lived in. Early the next morning, Soma looked like a corporate zombie after skipping bedtime to finish his paperwork. But he noticed that Lycia and all of his work crew were snoring like hogs. Standing up to get a closer look of his future bride, Soma sat down next to Lycia on the couch, where he observed the details of her perfectly arched back and golden brown hair. He gently touched a strand of hair on her face, causing the princess to wake up. And when Lycia noticed that he was standing there, she quickly became uncomfortable and asked him what he was doing. Not wanting to sound like a pervert, Soma asked her to join him on a quick journey, and along the way, Lycia kept on teasing him for not knowing how to ride a simple horse. However, Soma explained that even though he didn't know how to ride a horse, he could teach her how to ride something else later. Along the way, she wondered if he had any family that he left over or a girlfriend in his previous world. But when he told her that he didn't have anyone, she grew relieved. When they got to their destination, Soma told Lycia that the reason their country was running out of food was because all the farmers had switched to planting cash crops such as cotton. This all started when the demons attacked the continent, and countries that were far from the threat, including Elfridan, began exporting more cotton to cash out on the opportunity. However, when almost half of Landia began producing cotton, the price of the crop dropped down significantly, causing most of their farmers to run at a loss and quit their jobs. Lycia felt bad for not knowing this, but Soma told her to cheer up, because he was only teaching her everything now so that she could become a better ruler than him in the future. Back at the castle, the two of them sat down to have breakfast while discussing their plans to fix the hunger problem by encouraging the farmers to start planting food crops again. Soma insisted that the country must find another source of export instead of cotton, and that all of the food cultivated in the farm lands would be sold to citizens at a lower price. A young man with long blonde hair walked up to their table, and Lycia introduced him to Soma as Ludwin Arx, the present-day commander of the nation's Royal Guard squad. Ludwin sat down with them to have breakfast, and when he asked Soma if he was facing any problems with his work, the newbie king said that he needed more competent people on his team. Lycia advised him to announce a job application request to the general public of Elfridan, using a special media tool reserved only for the king, known as the Gemstone Broadcaster. The princess also suggested that they exclude any citizen with no education from applying. But Soma needed all the help that he could get, so he said that everyone would be allowed to try. He planned on motivating the masses to join his team by reciting quotes from a popular Chinese warlord, General Kao, who was famous for his skills in gathering talented people under his rule. Soma began his exciting speech, and as everyone across the country gathered to listen, he talked about his plans to rebuild the kingdom by implementing a new set of strategic policies. However, he would not be able to achieve these plans without an adequate workforce, so Soma encouraged every talented person, regardless of their social status, to apply for a chance to join his royal council. And to make things a little more interesting, he promised to offer the finalists of the Talent Hunter Royal Certificate of Elfridan, in addition to a huge sack of cash to go with the award. Waking up the next morning, Lycia couldn't help but think back to all of the things that Soma had said to her the previous day, and she fantasized about starting a family with him. However, her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door, and after a few seconds, her handmaiden walked in, informing Lycia that it was time to get dressed for the royal event. At the throne room, Soma sat down on his majestic chair, with Marx, Ludwin, and Lycia standing right in front of him, while the finalists knelt down as a sign of respect to their king. However, one of the finalists, a dark elf named Aisha, refused to bow down, stating that it was against her customs, and Ludwin was about to spank her hard, but Soma said that it was okay. He ordered the rest of them to stand up, and as the entire country watched this grand show, Marx declared that he was about to announce the individual talents of all the contestants. The first finalist to be called forward was Aisha Udgard, whose race lived in a secluded magical forest, And as Marks read out her bio, Soma used his powers to learn about her tribe as well. According to Marks, Aisha was a talented fighter with skills unlike any other warrior in the country, and Soma was curious to know if she was bold enough to shoot herself with his plot gun. However, Aisha said that she wanted a different kind of award, and Ludwin thought that she was referring to his hands on her cakes, so he tried to rush forward, but Soma quickly stopped him from acting like a simp. Aisha told Soma that rather than a cash prize, she wanted him to use his wisdom to help her community with a recent problem that they've been facing concerning their dried up forests. After thinking for a while, Soma realized that the forest must be drying up because some of the larger trees were blocking the sunlight from reaching small plants and other shrubs. He explained that the best way to solve this problem was for her clan to regularly cut down some of those trees, so as to prevent their forests from being destroyed by natural disasters. Aisha was so impressed by this knowledge that she knelt down and pledged her loyalty to Soma forever, also offering to become his royal plaything whenever he was feeling lonely. Soma promised to visit her tribe someday and teach them everything he had just said, after which Marks called the next finalist forward, which was a beautiful lady from the lagoon city named Juna. As Juna walked gracefully with her bouncy melons, Soma couldn't resist getting captured by her beauty, and when Lycia noticed this, she coughed and turned her face away from him. Marks announced that apart from being the most beautiful woman in Landia, Juna was also a phenomenal singer, having inherited a melodic voice from her ancestors who were mermaids. Soma was impressed by this statement, and as a test of her skills, he asked Juna to perform an uplifting song for the crowd, but the girl said that she only knew how to sing Billie Eilish songs. To solve this problem, Soma took out his smartphone, and as everyone watched in surprise, he gave Juna a pair of ear pods and made her listen to a song from his hometown. After listening to the lyrics of the foreign song, Juna began to sing the tune with so much emotion like Adele, that all the single men in the country began to cheer and fall for her beauty. Soma thanked her for giving them a Grammy-level performance, and Juna said that she would love to learn more songs from his home world by blowing on his long trombone in private. Marks called out the next finalist, an ugly fatso from the village of Pot, named Poncho. But when the plus-size contestant stepped forward, he accidentally tripped and fell on his stupid face. Professor Piggy got back on his feet, and Marks announced that the man's talent was that he could consume an unlimited amount of food that seemed physically impossible to other men. Poncho also knew a lot about exotic dishes served across the continent, and when Soma heard this, he jumped from his seat and called Poncho the most talented person in the room. When Poncho heard this, he immediately began to cry, but Soma told him to cheer up because his eating skills would save the entire kingdom, and he gave him the royal title of Chef Supreme. After the fatso, Marks called on the next finalist to make his entrance, and a mysterious guy, Hakuya Kuniming, with strange purple eyes and a black kimono robe stepped forward. Marks announced that Hakuya was one of the smartest men on the planet, with an IQ level similar to that of Einstein's, and he also said that it was Hakuya's uncle who advised him to apply. Soma offered to make him the royal librarian of Elfridom, but Hakuya kindly rejected this lame job, and he said that he would like to serve the kingdom as his military advisor instead. Shocked by this response, Soma asked Kazuya to explain his reasons, and the young man said that he was willing to take up such a demanding position because Soma had earned his respect. He had expected the newbie king to look down on Poncho because of his stupid and unusual talent, but he was shocked when Soma did the exact opposite and accepted the weird fatso. Impressed by his calm and elegant way of talking, Soma declared that he would conduct a special aptitude test for Hakuya to determine if he was worthy enough to handle that position. It was now time to introduce the last finalist, and Marks announced that she was Tomo, a beast girl from an ancient wolf tribe, who had the extraordinary ability to communicate with animals. But while Soma was busy thinking of what to do with her rare talent, the shy girl suddenly spoke up and said that she had something very important to tell him. However, the wolf girl had such a tiny voice that Soma could barely hear what she was saying. Secret information in his ear, and although Soma was shocked to the core, he just acted normal and pretended like it was nothing. After the finalists' induction ceremony, Soma and his 3 royal allies met up with the Beast Girl in his office, where he revealed to them that Tomo could also converse with deadly demons. They were all surprised to hear this, because everyone knew that the demons were an advanced group of creatures who talked to each other using a completely different language. However, Tomo explained that she had met and talked to a wolf demon several months ago, while she was playing in a nearby forest, and that the creature surprisingly didn't harm her. Lycia and others still couldn't believe this story, but Soma said that it was true, and that if they could locate more demons for Tomo to speak with, they could probably end the war for good. Despite such a possibility, Soma also supported this point of view, saying that he had heard of a time when Elfridin was at war with the nation of Amadonia, and Marx, being the oldest among them, confirmed this to be true. Tomo walked forward and held Lycia's hand, and when Soma realized that she was getting scared, he quickly changed the topic and said that her powers were a blessing to this world. Kneeling down in front of her, Soma told Tomo that they would do everything possible to keep her safe within the castle. But the little girl didn't understand why all of that was necessary. Of her status. He advised that the best way to keep her safe was by giving her a royal upgrade, and that this could easily be done if Soma and Lycia got married, and adopted Tomo as their own child. However, the lovebirds weren't ready to accept their feelings for one another, so Soma said that it would be better for King Alfred and his wife to adopt Tomo instead. Lycia was so as to keep the public from becoming too suspicious. But in order for Tomo's stay in the castle to look normal, Soma offered to make her in charge of all the horses in their stables for the time being, and the little girl gladly accepted. A few weeks after their little meeting, while Soma was in her room sewing up a strange ninja doll, Lycia told him that Tomo had finally learned to accept them as her second family, with all that food. But Soma said that it was a surprise. And hours later, Juna and Poncho announced to the country that the castle was hosting an exotic buffet. Soma explained to the citizens that he had set up this buffet in order to show them some meal options available to eat, while he and his team were busy solving the country's food problems. Lycia and the other ladies were the judges of the buffet, and when Porco revealed the first dish of the day, the girls were creeped out to see that it was just a squishy little octopus. However, when Soma chopped the creature up into tiny bits and turned it into crispy squid kebabs, the girls couldn't resist the good taste of the dish, and they all asked for second servings. Jelly Belly unveiled the second meal, which was a bunch of slender wood sticks, and while the other girls weren't so excited by this, Aisha said that it was a common delicacy in her community. Soma sliced the sticks into many wood chips, after which he added salt and sugar to the mix. And when the judges tasted the new meal, they were surprised at how crispy and flavorful it was. Poncho revealed the next dish, and this time, while everyone was grossed out by the locusts on their plates, Tomo took a huge bite out of the insect's head and said that she loved it. Poncho said that he had used a special spice from Tomo's hometown, called mash water, to prepare the dish, because the familiar taste of spices on the meal brought back the good memories of his hometown. That it was a slime creature. Slimes were one of the weakest creatures on Landia, hunted down by most beginner adventurers, but no one, aside from Poncho, had ever thought of turning them into a meal. Aisha and the other girls were surprised to see that the slime was still jelly-like, and they asked Poncho how he was able to do this, because dead slimes always turned into liquid goo. Poncho explained that he had used a special preservation technique from a certain tribe, which involved whacking the slime with a stick to destroy its nucleus, but not its main body. He squished the dead slime like a cake batter before rolling it flat and chopping it up into little noodle-like portions, and then Poncho boiled the slime spaghetti with some spices. The result came out nice, and Soma said that it reminded him of Korean ramen. But the girls didn't like the look of the weird dish at all, so they told their wonderful king to try it out first. Soma was also scared to taste it, but when he eventually did, he realized that it was the best meal in their buffet so far, so Aisha and the others joined in, and they loved it as well. The country folk were also excited about this creative new food option, and after showing everyone the life hacks to defeat hunger, Poncho and Juna ended the exotic food show. A week later, while Soma was snacking on a locust treat in his office, Lycia's maid walked in to inform the king that Marx had requested a formal meeting with him in the throne room. When Soma arrived there, he met Marx and Hakuya on their knees, and to his surprise, the Prime Minister said that he was ready to give up his title to a younger leader just like Albert. Asking about his replacement, Marx said that there was no better person to take his place other than Hakuya, and Soma agreed to make Mr. Fancy Mouth his new Prime Minister. However, Soma begged Marx to remain on the council and continue to help him with matters related to their kingdom's political affairs, and the old elf accepted his offer. Being an impatient smarty pants, Hakuya decided to start his new job right away by advising Soma to take a break from all of his duties as the king of Elfridon. He explained that this would motivate the staff members on his team to get some rest as well, and Hakuya suggested that Soma should enjoy his day by going on a date with Lycia. Soma wasn't ready to go that far with Lycia, but Mark said that it was a great idea, and that he should take Aisha along as well to add some chocolate flavor to their vanilla cream pie.
What do you mean by that?
However, when Soma went outside to grab the ladies, he was surprised to see the both of them engaged in a heated sword fight over who should get the first taste of his lollipop. Aisha shot at Lycia with her tornado blade jutsu, but the princess quickly dodged this move and fired back with her killer frost technique while Soma watched the both of them in surprise. To stop them from destroying the castle with their powers, Soma commanded the girls to end their battle, after which he told them that they were all going on a date together. He explained that it was all Hakuya's idea, and Aisha suggested that they visit her place for the date. But Soma said that they only had one day off, and that her village was too far away. She tried advising the king to ditch the skinny princess and have fun with her in his room instead, but Lycia gave Soma a death stare, and he told Aisha that it was just a friendly date. They changed into school uniforms to disguise themselves from the public, and while Soma liked Lycia's outfit just fine, he told Aisha that she looked better in sorry, I meant battle suit. As they rode through the city, Soma reminded the girls that they had to keep their identities a secret, and he said that they should call him by his second name, Kazuya, for the rest of the day. They got out of the carriage and explored the different parts of the town, after which they sat down to take a break and talk about how peaceful it was to just be a normal citizen. However, Aisha suddenly stopped the conversation to tell them that she was facing a hunger emergency, so they all rushed over to Juna's cafe for a quick and tasty lunch break. Soma spoke to Juna using code names, and the brilliant singer quickly caught on to the fact that they were secretly visiting the town, while keeping all of their identities on the low. She served them some delicious slime spaghetti, and while Soma was talking with Juna, Lycia frowned and said that he always treated her differently from the rest of them. However, Soma blamed it on the fact that Juna was so freaking gorgeous, and everyone suddenly switched to attacking poor Aisha, calling her a former warrior turned glutton. Aisha wondered if this was the reason why the king always refused to bring her into his room, but Soma said that such a thing would never be possible, because he was engaged to Lycia. Shocked by this statement, the girls turned to look at him, and they explained to Soma that all men and women were allowed to have multiple partners in this part of the world. Lycia further said that if he truly wanted some extra honey, she was willing to share his plot gun with 7 other ladies, and Soma couldn't stop fantasizing about such a beautiful harem. His thoughts were interrupted by the noise of a random couple arguing at another table, and when Soma noticed that the girl had pointy ears, he quickly said that she was a half-wolf. However, Lycia and Aisha corrected him, saying that the girl was actually a hybrid fox because of her fluffy tail, and Juna joked that he could start a war by making such mistakes. Lycia identified the man to be Halbert Magna, the eldest son of his family, and a hot-headed loser who went to the same school as her, and was very good at riding hoes. Sorry, I meant riding horses. Asking about the fox girl, Lycia told Soma that she knew nothing about her, but Juna said that she was Keed Foxia, a powerful mage working under the Special Ops unit of the armed forces. Keed begged Halbert not to join forces with the leader of his state, Duke Carmine, because according to her, the Duke planned on rallying up soldiers for a rebellion against the new king. Despite this, Halbert insisted that he wanted to join the Duke's army because he could learn more about the art of war. But Keed told him to obey his father's orders and return home. She further said that the Duke was an airhead for trying to start a rebellion in the middle of a war, because it would only make their kingdom vulnerable to attacks from other countries. As Soma listened to their conversation, he remembered having a similar talk with Hakuya about the nations surrounding Elfridon and the possibilities of them launching an attack. Hakuya said that the Demon Lord's attack on Landia had turned most of the leaders hostile, and that none of the countries surrounding theirs was ready for a peaceful relationship. The country of Turgiz, located to the south of Elfridon, was known for migrating up north during the harsh winter, and they might plan on invading the kingdom very soon. To the west of Elfridon was the nation of Amadonia, which was notorious for giving out soldiers to the best buyers, and could try to spark a deadly civil war within the country. Back in the present, Keed continued to tell Albert that he was making a big mistake. But the fool said that he was going to become the next great duke by fighting alongside Carmine. He added that many other noble families were against the new king's rule, but Keed said that it was only the ones accused of being corrupt that were siding with Duke Carmine's army. Halbert tried to defend his decision by saying that the king was inexperienced compared to all the dukes, but Keed said that Soma was much wiser because of his brilliant talent hunt scheme. However, the fox girl suddenly became quiet when she realized that Soma was standing right in front of her, and they all went into an inner room of the cafe to continue talking. She apologized for her boyfriend's behavior, but because he was so daft, Halbert didn't realize that they were talking to the king, and he thought that Soma was Keed's ex-lover. Keed tried telling him to calm down, and Halbert yelled at her to shut up, but when the loser tried to attack Soma, Aisha quickly stood up and squeezed his dumb face with her hand. Soma told her to let him go, but when Halbert still didn't know who he was, the king decided to make it clear for him by sitting on his chair like a throne and making his voice sound deep. When he realized his mistake, Halbert quickly hid behind Keed, but Soma said that there was nothing to be scared of, because he wasn't going to punish him for siding with Carmine. However, the king explained to Halbert that his decision to join forces with the Duke would make him a natural enemy of Keed if a civil war for the seat of the throne should ever arise. He advised the young man to think well before making his choice, and when Keed flashed him a cute smile, Halbert knew that he had to support Soma in order to keep his lover safe. After the whole cafe chaos, Soma and the girls returned to enjoying their day off, and while Aisha was snoring like a pregnant cow, Lycia told Soma to rest his head on her lap. He was initially shocked by this statement, but when Lycia said that she was making up for her lack of mature melons, Soma felt pity for the princess and chose to accept her offer. Asking him if he was ready to get engaged, Soma told her that he could only marry his true love, so Lycia said that if it was meant to be, the universe would find a way to bring them together. Back at the castle, while Soma was showing off his latest invention to Lycia, her maid, Serena, walked in and informed the king that he had some visitors waiting in the throne room. When Soma got there, he was surprised to see Keed and Halbert with his father Glaive Magna, who heard of his son's behavior and had come to apologize on behalf of the family. Soma teased Halbert about his jacked up face, and Glaive told the king that he had ordered his soldiers to beat up the spoiled brat, after Keed had revealed to him what happened. The king told Glaive that his son was already forgiven, and because of her wise words at the restaurant the other day, Soma decided to upgrade Keed to the level of a royal guard. He also commanded Albert to leave the army and join the Special Ops unit as Keed's replacement, so that the lovebirds would get to spend more time with each other. However, after all of the announcements, Glaive suddenly said that he had something very important to tell Soma, so everyone left the throne room for them to speak in private. While Glaive and the king were talking, Lycia and the others went out for a tea break, and Serena teased the princess that she could learn a whole lot from Keed and Halbert's love life. After working tirelessly to fix the country, Soma decided to have some fun for a change. So he transferred his consciousness into a toy ninja and used the mascot to patrol around the city. Nabu the ninja decided to join an adventure squad, and because the crew members had heard great things about him, they quickly welcomed the masked warrior into their team. As the adventure squad was exploring a hidden dungeon, the crew members were shocked at how fast Nabu was able to defeat deadly creatures such as basilisks and demon spiders. However, the team was suddenly faced with a giant salamander that had deadly acid spit, and when it was clear that they were no match for the creature, everyone quickly ran for their lives. They tried to avoid getting burned by the lizard's saliva, but Nabu tripped and fell down, so a certain girl in the group helped him out by throwing a flash bomb to distract the creature. The salamander went into beast mode and began splashing its deadly spit everywhere, so Nabu protected the girl with his body before lifting her up and running out of the dungeon. Outside the cave, the other team members noticed that Nabu and his new girlfriend were having an argument, and they wondered how she was able to understand his weird language. Later that night, while Soma was giving his toy ninja a bath, Lycia suddenly walked into the room and was surprised when she noticed how big the mascot doll had become. Soma explained that he had asked a local craftsman to create a larger version of Nabu so that he could use the ninja doll to explore all of the secret passages within their kingdom. A week later, Soma held a meeting in the throne room with all of his staff members, where he thanked the men for giving up their social lives to help him complete all the paperwork. He congratulated the men for their legendary sacrifice and said that all of their hard work had finally helped the kingdom to secure the money needed for a brand new mega project. As a reward for their tireless efforts, Soma said that the workers should drink an unlimited amount of PG grape juice for the rest of the day, and the men all hailed their Gen Z king. At the castle balcony, Lycia asked Soma about the project, and he said that he planned on building a new city in the kingdom that would serve as a port for all delivered goods. However, Lycia argued that they already have a seaport, but Soma said that this new one would generate more money for the country, because it would also double as a tourist attraction center. He also explained that because of the hunger problem, a brand new land port was the best way to improve distribution across the nation and slash down the prices of all food products. They moved over to his office, and Lycia scolded him for working too much, but Soma said that she was only complaining because he had refused to do all of that hard work on her back instead.
What did he say?
However, Lycia said that she was concerned about his health, but Soma ignored her simp talk and told her to summon another dumb hero that would rescue her from loneliness. Soma fell asleep shortly after, and despite all of his harsh words, Lycia still moved closer to whisper some sweet words in his ear, before giving him a soft kiss on the cheek. The next day, Soma and his groupies traveled to the town of Parnon, at the site of the future land port, where they were greeted by Ludwin, who was in charge of coordinating the project. However, Ludwin said that there was a little problem with the construction, and when they all went inside, he explained that some of the locals were against building a port on their land. This was because most of the villagers believed in the myth that a terrible sea god would destroy their homes with massive waves if any structure was ever built on that particular spot. Fascinated by this story, Soma told Ludwin to take him to the village leader, and when they got there, the old man kept on acting grumpy until he realized that Soma was actually the king. The village leader told Soma the exact same thing that Ludwin had said earlier, and when they got back to the castle, he invited Hakuya over to talk about this brand new discovery. Soma explained that although there was no such thing as a sea god, the Parnam folktale was partly true, because the village was often destroyed in the past by gigantic tsunamis. However, Ludwin said that he had never heard of such a thing happening in that location, and Soma told him that tsunamis usually took hundreds of years before showing up again. For this reason, Soma said that they would have to change the location of the land port project, because of the 1% chance that a tsunami could occur in their lifetime. As Lycia watched the men talk about their plans, she couldn't stop herself from falling for Soma's charms, and she asked Aisha to help her make sure that the king was always happy. The location of the project was eventually changed, and work continued as usual, but Halbert was pissed off that he and his special ops buddies had to dig up the ground as well. He argued that the special ops unit was meant for more high-ranking jobs, but Keed told him to quit his whining and get back to work, unless he wouldn't get any foxy styles that evening. After the shift had ended, they went over to the guest room for a quick afternoon snack, and Halbert said that he had never tasted anything so delicious like a hamburger before, because she was obsessed with the king. Keed told him that it was Soma who came up with the idea for the meal, using unique spices made specially by the half-wolf tribe. She also said that Soma was the most capable leader to ever rule Elfriden, because his land port project would effectively solve the issue of hunger and inflation in the country. The lovebirds were planning on taking a donut and sausage break when Soma and Lycia suddenly arrived at the guest room, so Halbert stood up and greeted the king like a soldier. However, Soma told him to stop all the fake love because it didn't match his bad boy style at all, and that from now on, Halbert should feel free to call him by his first name instead. Walking back to the construction site, Lycia was fascinated by all the road work, and Soma told her that it mostly involved coating the ground with a special concrete material. She observed some fancy trees on each side of the road, and Aisha explained that they were special trees from her forest village, designed to keep out creepy monsters and wild animals. Soma also said that the trees were planted a few centimeters apart from each other, to prevent deadly creatures from crowding at a particular location and attacking the villagers. As they chatted more about nature, a mysterious blue bird came flying at top speed, and Keed said that it was a messenger animal with special abilities known as a Kiwi. The bird landed gently on Aisha's arm, but the dark elf was shocked to see that the message was from her father, narrating how half of their village had been destroyed by a terrible flood. She explained that the flood had taken the lives of many of her kinfolk, and after thinking for a while, Soma ordered Keed to send all of their best men over to Aisha's village at once. He told Aisha to remain strong despite her situation, after which Soma instructed Lycia to head back to the castle and send soldiers and survival packages to the Dark Elf village. Asking her about the distance to her forest, Aisha said that it was a 2-day journey, and Soma was worried that they wouldn't get there in time to rescue the remaining survivors. While he and Halbert were thinking of ways to move faster, Soma saw a monster rhino crossing the street, so he quickly ordered his team to travel on the back of the mighty creatures. They arrived at Aisha's village by the evening, and after greeting her father, Wadden Udgard, Soma asked the man to tell him everything about how the forest landslide had happened. Wadden said that the flood took place at the eastern part of the village, and that many of their elves were yet to be found, so Soma told him to gather the names of all the missing people. He also told Wadden to organize a watch party that would notify them about a second attack, but Aisha begged the king to let her do it instead, and Soma had no choice but to agree. The king gave a short and direct speech to motivate his rescue squad, after which the men went straight to work and began digging through piles of rubble to find the lost elves. While he and Halbert were digging the ground, Soma heard a sound from under a tree stump, and when he called Halbert for help, they were shocked to see an elf girl lying unconscious. The rescue team took the boy away, and Halbert was amazed at how sharp the king's senses were. But Soma told him that he was only able to do that by controlling a toy mouse with his magical powers. When they got back to the hut, Wadden thanked Soma for arriving fast enough to help their village, even though most of the bodies that were recovered did not respond to any treatment. Aisha walked in seconds later, and she told them that Lycia had arrived with backup and survival items. But Wadden's brother, Ropther, said that everything they were doing was useless. Soma tried telling him that they could fix a lot by providing good food and rebuilding people's houses, but Ropther said that none of his techniques could bring the dead back to life. Wadden apologized to the king on behalf of his brother, and he told Soma that the reason Ropther sounded so hopeless was because he had lost both his wife and daughter to the flood. Seeing how hurt his brother was, Wadden tried telling him to focus on the good memories, but Ropther fell to the ground and began crying, making Soma feel like he had caused everything. Before he left the village, Aisha met up with Soma and told him that her uncle was one of the people who had refused to accept the idea of cutting down some of the trees in the forest. Asking if the forest would have survived with his plans in place, Soma told Aisha that although the chances would have been higher, he couldn't know for sure, because such things were controlled by nature. On the way back, Lycia told Soma that she felt useless for not helping them rescue any of the elves, but he told her to cheer up because she had saved a lot of people with the survival packages. However, the king said that it was him who had failed the country by not providing every state in the kingdom with the right support materials to withstand any natural disaster. Later that night, Juna walked over to Soma's room, and when she saw how stressed he was from all the paperwork, she moved closer and began rubbing his forehead with her soft hand. She told Soma not to hide his feelings from her like the way he did with Lycia and the others, and that it was alright for him to give her a booty call whenever he was feeling lonely. However, while Juna was still talking, she noticed that the king had fallen asleep, so she whispered a mermaid love spell in his ear before getting up to sing him a sweet lullaby. Meanwhile, at the dukedom of Randall, Carmine and the other leaders gathered for an emergency meeting concerning how they would defeat Soma and take over the kingdom. The Duchess of Lagoon City, Excel Walter, argued that it would be completely foolish for them to start a civil war when other countries planned on attacking the kingdom as well. Castor, the Duke of Vargas City, told her that Amadonia had promised to support them with soldiers, but Excel said that those low-lives had probably made the same juicy offer to Soma. She asked Carmine why he was so intent on defeating Soma, despite the fact that the new king had managed to achieve a lot and revive the country in a short amount of time. However, the scary lion man said that Soma was not fit to rule as the king of Elfriden, because he was just a foreigner who knew nothing about their customs and traditions. Excel said that he was a greedy kitty who wanted the throne all for himself, but Carmine told them that his sole purpose for starting the rebellion was to bring Albert back as the king. While they were still talking, Castor's daughter, Carla, walked into the room and said that she was going to join the war, because Soma had turned her friend Lycia into a royal side chick. Carmine agreed to accept Amadonia's support, and when the news of this decision got to Gaius, the king of Amadonia, he told his son, Julius, to prepare for the invasion of Elfriden. Back at the castle, Hakuya told Soma that his land port project had improved food supply to a great extent, and so it was time for them to focus their attention on the next big strategy. Soma knew that he would have to declare war against the three dukedoms if they continued to openly rebel against him, but he still didn't want to choose the path of violence. However, when Soma remembered that it was his job to defend Lycia, and the others by all means, he told Hakuya to make all of the necessary preparations for a deadly civil war. Gaius gathered all of his troops in the throne room, and he told the men that it was time for them to claim back the land that Elfriden had stolen from them many years ago. While the king was making his speech, Colbert, the Minister of Finance, interrupted Gaius and begged him to delay his war plans because it could make their nation lose a lot of money. Gaius walked down and kicked the fool with his metal boot, But Colbert told the king that by invading Elfridon, he would be going against the peace treaty set up by the Chaos Empire. Gaius was about to chop off Colbert's head with his sword when Julius suddenly stepped in between them and told the minister that Elfridon had not yet signed the peace treaty. Colbert tried to argue that Julius was wrong, but Gaius told him to shut his weakling mouth up and declared that he would no longer serve as Amadonia's finance minister anymore. At his office, Soma told Lycia about his plans to fight against the dukedoms, after which they went over to the castle conference room for his virtual meeting with the 3 state leaders. After introducing himself to the leaders, Soma told the old folks that he was giving them until midnight to join his side, unless he would be forced to treat them as traitors of the crown. Ixel asked him to explain his grand plan, and Soma said that he was going to bring all of the nation's armed forces under a single effective unit that would take orders only from the king. Castor called him a moron for having such thoughts, because the whole point of dividing the armed forces in the first place was to ensure that the king never turned rogue. However, Soma said that his old man tactics would no longer work in this new age, and that the best way to defeat all enemy nations was by having a single and unified battle squad. Ixel asked Soma about the new land port, but he assured her that it would not affect the seaport in her city, and with that, the Duchess knelt down and declared her loyalty to the king. Because he was such a stubborn hothead, Castor still refused to join sides with Soma's army, and he said that he would rather fight and die in battle than to take orders from a little brat. Soma turned his attention to Carmine, and when he asked him to explain his reasons for rebelling, the Lion Man said that he was simply acting on his instincts as an army general. Soma called the Duke a big fool for fighting against him, but Carmine said that he was old and wise enough to make his own decisions, so the king told him to go choke on a hairball. He told them that as a basic rule of war, whoever should defeat the other's team would have the right to take over their entire army, and both men agreed to those terms. However, as Carmine was about to leave the group chat, Lycia called him back, and she used her blade to cut off her hair in front of everyone, as a sign of her loyalty to Soma. After the conference meeting, Soma thanked Ixel for joining his side, and he also thanked Juna, who was actually the Duchess' granddaughter, for helping them become partners. The following day, Gaius and his soldiers marched over to the Elfridon city of Altamura, where they captured the city's mayor, Weist, and told him to hand over the city to them. Being such a useless coward, the mayor agreed to give them the city, but he begged Gaius for some time to convince all of his citizens not to fight against their mighty Amadonian army. Julius advised his dad to accept the fool's terms, because that way they wouldn't lose any of their men. So Gaius promised to protect Weist if he delivered the city to him by tomorrow. Meanwhile, just outside the Randall Castle, Carmine's soldiers began attacking Keed, Halbert, and the Special Ops team, who had set up a fortress in front of the place overnight. Halbert used his fire magic to create a flaming spear, and he shot it at Carmine's men. But Keed was shocked to see that the enemy soldiers were armed with multiple cannons. Keed was worried because she had only used her powers to protect the fortress against magical attacks, and when Carmine's men shot the first cannonball, it nearly smashed through the wall. The soldiers continued firing, so Keed and Halbert ducked to avoid the impact. But suddenly out of nowhere, a dark elf appeared and took out one of the balls with his mystic arrow. The elf introduced himself to Halbert as Sir, and he explained that it was his daughter who he and the king had saved from the landslide wreckage back at the forest village. For this reason, Sir decided to join the Special Ops unit and assist the king in defeating his enemies, in order to prove to his daughter that he was just as brave and strong as Halbert. After Sir had destroyed most of the enemy's cannonballs, the fortress doors were brought down, so Ludwin and his royal guard squad marched forward and overpowered Carmine's men. The rest of the soldiers quickly retreated, and at the Randall Castle, some of the corrupt leaders that Soma had banished accused Carmine of being too weak to lead his army. However, the Lion General showed off his scary face and told the men that he was forever fearless, because he clearly had the upper hand in the war with more soldiers than Soma. The rich idiots apologized for ever doubting his abilities, but Carmine told them to get the hell out of his castle and leave the fighting to those who could actually hold a sword. Back at Altamura, Weist returned to face Gaius and his men, but the coward began to cry as he told them that he wasn't able to convince his subjects to surrender their lives peacefully. Being an impatient warlord, Gaius was about to slice Weist's head with his blade, but Julius told him that it would be smarter for them to make an agreement with the mayor instead. Weist dropped a few bags of gold on the ground as a sign of loyalty and respect, and he promised once again to deliver the city to Gaius's army in the afternoon of the next day. However, the Amazonian army had no idea that Weist was actually working together with Excel Walter, who the king had sent over to Altamura 3 days before the Civil War. Weist complained that they had spent a lot of money to keep those barbarians in check, but Excel told him that it was important, in order to give Soma more time to execute his plans. Back at the fortress, while the others were having dinner, Keed placed her head on Halbert's shoulder, and said that she would always love him, no matter how the war ended. The following day, Carmine's men continued to attack the fortress as usual, but Halbert was shocked when he noticed dozens of dragons from Duke Castor's army flying above them. However, just a night before the attack, at the Vargas castle, Castor's assistant, Tallman, met up with the Duke and told him that all the preparations had been made for an attack by the king. Asking him what their plan was, Castor told Tallman that he would have to face Soma on his own, because he had refused to join sides with the corrupt nobles on Carmine's team. Carla suddenly entered the throne room, and she told the both of them that Soma's ship, armed by his squad of wild rhinos, would soon arrive in the front of their castle at any minute. Castor couldn't believe this news, but when he looked through the window with his telescope, he was shocked to see Elfreden's best battleship being rolled on wheels in their direction. Speaking with Soma through the gemstone broadcaster, Castor asked for an explanation, and the king said that he was going to use his warship to take over the entire dragon state. Although he was impressed by Soma's war tactics, Castor wasn't ready to surrender to the king just yet, so he ordered Carla to gather up her dragon squad and take down Soma's ship. Air Force One took to the skies and were about to drop bombs on the battleship, when Soma's men suddenly attacked all of them on both sides with magical heat-sensing missiles. Changing battle strategies, the winged warriors flew down to find the ship's weak point, after which they used their dragons to launch flames on all of the vessel's wheels and weapons. However, when the other soldiers said that there was no one on the ship, Carla realized that Soma had tricked them into leaving the castle so that he could attack her father alone. Soma and the gang ambushed Castor, and when the Duke asked them how they got inside, the king explained that he had read everything about the Vargas castle from a history book. Castor was impressed by Soma's wisdom, so he told the king to spare his royal advisor from their fight, and instead make Tallman the new chief of the Air Force if he was defeated. Soma told him to surrender quietly, but Castor was a stubborn warrior, and he pulled out his sword, so Aisha grabbed her elf blade and was prepared to fight him for the sake of the king. Castor called Soma a coward for not fighting him directly, but Aisha didn't like the tone of his voice, so she slashed her blade directly at him, but he held back the attack with his sword. Aisha tried to land a massive hit on the Duke, but Castor blocked her rookie move before pushing her away with his sword, and he said that her huge melons were throwing her off balance. However, Aisha didn't like his jokes, so she sent him crashing against the wall with a super swipe. Aisha said that she was going to defend Soma with her whole life, but Castor told her that she was way too weak to be anyone's bodyguard, and he continued to slash his sword at hers. Castor was about to land the finishing blow when Nabu suddenly arrived and blocked his strike, after which Lycia appeared from behind and trapped the Duke with her ice sword jutsu. Aisha completed the combo move with a supersonic wind blade technique that broke through the ice and sent Castor crashing to the floor like a fatality strike in Mortal Kombat. After accepting defeat, Castor asked Lycia if Soma was worthy to be the king, and the princess said that Soma was a good and wise leader, who she would always remain loyal to. She placed a magical collar around his neck to stop the Duke from escaping, and when Carla returned, she tried to attack the imposters, but Castor told her to stop because they had been defeated. Carla allowed Aisha to place a collar on her as well, after which Soma made Tallman the new general of the Air Force and instructed him to send his dragon knights to Carmine's state. Back at the present, Halbert and Keed were ready to surrender to Carmine's men when they realized that the dragons were actually on their side, which meant that Soma's plan had worked. Halbert and the king greeted each other like college buddies, and when Soma teased him for hiding behind the fortress, Halbert said that Soma was the kind of guy to let his girl pay the bills. Meanwhile, inside the Randall castle, all of the corrupt nobles were getting nervous because of Soma's consistent attacks, and they asked Carmine to take charge of the situation. However, after confirming the terrible status of their army from his military assistant, Carmine said that it was time for them to accept defeat and surrender to King Soma. The spineless rich men tried suggesting that he use the citizens as human shields to protect all of them, but Carmine suddenly got angry and ordered his men to cuff them up in collars. He then told his assistant to put a collar around his neck as well, after which Carmine instructed Beowulf to take over the army and hand him over to Soma and his Kidda's squad. Later on, while Carmine was sulking over a bottle of PG grape juice, Beowulf told him that the king had just left Randall, meaning that he had never wanted to capture him in the first place. Confused on why they hadn't taken Carmine prisoner, Soma told Carla that he had always thought the Duke was his #1 enemy, until Halbert's dad explained things a bit better to him. Glaive told Soma that Carmine had only sided with the corrupt nobles so that he could gather the men in one place, and help the kingdom to finally capture the ugly fraudsters for good. Soma was shocked by this story, but Glaive further said that Carmine had formed a bond with all the bald crooks, because he knew that they all still had some form of hidden wealth. Carmine convinced the nobles to spend all of their money on buying soldiers from the nation of Zem, so that he could recover the money as ransom, once he had captured the soldiers as well. Surprised at how forward-thinking the Duke truly was, Soma asked why Carmine had done all of that, and Glaive said that it was because the general had faith in his leadership skills. Back at Altamura, the Amazonian army was about to attack the city, when Julius noticed someone standing on the wall, and Gaius was surprised when he realized that it was Excel Walter. Wondering how she had gotten to Altamura so quickly, Julius figured that the Duchess must have been in the city all along and was siding with Soma, so he advised his dad to retreat. However, Gaius wasn't ready to turn back, because he didn't want to look like a coward, and Excel created a water TV to display Soma's speech to the people of Elfriden. The king told everyone that he had successfully defeated both Carmine and Castor in the Civil War, but that the nation of Amadonia, led by King Gaius, planned on attacking the kingdom. Because of their role in starting the Civil War, the king declared war on all of Amadonia, and Soma told Gaius that he had already sent dozens of men over to destroy the capital city. Gaius quickly ordered his men to march back home, but while the men were riding through the valleys at night, they were attacked by a group of masked archers, led by Juna herself. This attack reduced the number of Amadonian soldiers by half, and when he finally arrived at the capital city of Van, Gaius was shocked to see Elfriden banners mounted everywhere. However, Julius told his father not to lose hope, because there were still Amadonian flags all over the castle, which meant that Soma and his army had not conquered Van just yet. Gaius ordered his soldiers to charge at the invaders with full force, and when word of this plan got to Soma, the king gave the command for Ludwin and the others to fight back as well. As both sides continued to attack each other head-on, Soma remained at the Elfriden battle camp with Carla, arranging all of the little chess pieces for his next big strategy. Soma said that he was willing to give up his life for the nation if things ever got out of hand, but when Carla asked if he wasn't scared of death, Soma realized that he was just bluffing. As the battle went on, Gaius told his son to escape immediately, because according to him, they had already lost the war, and Soma would be aiming for the royal family first. Julius tried to convince his father that it would be better if they all retreated, but the old man ordered his son to leave so that he could keep their bloodline alive once he was defeated. One of the soldiers informed Soma that Gaius and his army were charging straight for their battle camp, so the king instructed Carla to hand over the kingdom to Lycia if he didn't come back alive. However, the dragon girl wasn't ready to make her friend cry with the news of Soma's death, and she told the king to let her fight instead, so Soma gave her the permission to attack Gaius. As the Amadonian army got nearer, Ludwin charged forward and threw his spear directly at Gaius's heart. But when he came closer, Ludwin realized that it was just a fake clone. Carla flew down to fight the real Gaius, and when the crazy warlord was about to overpower her, Nabu quickly arrived to help, by using his spear to hold back the attack. Soma suddenly appeared and called Gaius an impostor for trespassing on their land, so the angry Amadonian wanted to chop his head off, but Nabu held his arm and refused to let go. Soma told Carla to light up his ninja doll with her fire magic, and this resulted in a massive explosion that covered Gaius in a ball of flames, and blasted Carla down to the ground. While the king was checking up on Carla, they were shocked to see that Gaius was still alive after the explosion, and even though most of his armor was gone, he continued to march forward. The archers shot multiple arrows at his injured body, but before he died, Gaius used the last of his energy to throw his sword at Soma, which managed to land just next to the king's foot. With Gaius down, Soma and the gang took over the castle at Van, and Lycia noticed that the Amadonians spent a lot of money to create a world-standard design for their throne room. Ludwin informed the king that Gaius's son, Julius, had escaped from the city during the war, and that his daughter, Roroa, had also fled the town with the ex-minister of finance, Colbert. Poncho said that the nation had more weapons than food, so Soma said that they would make money for the basic needs of the people, by selling off all the excess guns. Glaive reported that their soldiers were ready to take over the whole of Amadonia, but Soma said that the war should end immediately, because the Chaos Empire was coming soon. Lycia was surprised to hear this, but Soma told her that according to the international peace treaty set by the Empire, their kingdom was considered a rebel for invading Amadonia. He told everyone to begin cleaning up the waste products in the city caused by the war, but as Ludwin walked through the streets, he noticed that a lot of the people still hated Elfriden. Juna arrived later in the day, and Soma thanked her for coming while complimenting her naval outfit. But this made Lycia jealous, and Aisha stroked her head to calm her down. Soma said that he needed Juna's exceptional singing abilities to succeed in his plan of uniting the people of Elfriden and Amadonia through the power of visual entertainment. A transparent screen opened up in the middle of the city, and just when the live show was about to start, Aisha suddenly began to shiver and experience stage fright. However, Soma told her not to worry at all because she looked very beautiful in her dress, after which they walked up to the stage and announced the first performer of the show. The first singer was a little girl named Pamela, who gave a heartwarming performance of a lullaby that made all of the citizens smile, after which it was time for Juna to do her thing. While Juna was serenading the crowd, Soma pulled Aisha aside and told her to be extra vigilant about their safety, because the next singer on the show could be quite dangerous. The audience clapped at the end of Juna's performance, and Soma announced that their next singer was a soldier, Margarita, who would be performing the Amadonian anthem. Margarita sang the words of the anthem with so much passion that it made the people become emotional, after which she told Soma to execute her for committing treason. However, the king said that it would be crazy to kill her just for singing a song, and that his mission was to build a unified kingdom where everyone was free to express themselves. Meanwhile, at the Grand Chaos Empire, the leader of the armed forces, Jean Euphoria, told her sister, Maria, the queen of the empire, about her plans to visit Amadonia and meet with Soma. Maria said she had a feeling that Soma would readily give up his claim to Amadonia, but Jean wasn't so certain about that, because unlike her sister, the hero king was a hardcore realist. After Soma took over as the new ruler of Amadonia, his daily paperwork doubled in number, as he was now responsible for the affairs of all the citizens living in both countries. Lycia said that there were lots of requests for live television shows and fun outdoor events, ever since he had encouraged the citizens to freely express themselves the other day. After filing all the documents, Soma got a call from Hakuya telling him that a battalion of soldiers from the Chaos Empire, led by Jean Euphoria, would be visiting Amadonia soon. Soma thanked him for the heads up, after which Poncho arrived and said that he had something important to show him, and he unwrapped a bag containing a white flower. Poncho said that the plant was called the Mysterious Lily, because its fragrance alone could send anyone into a deep sleep, and Soma told him to take it out immediately. However, Poncho explained that he had drained this one of all its pollen, so it was practically harmless, after which he brought the flower's root and showed it to Soma. The king was suddenly excited by this weird crop, and when Lycia asked why, he explained that lily root was one of the best sources of carbs, but the princess still looked confused. Poncho said that there were a lot of mysterious lily plants along the rocky areas of Amadonia, and Soma was glad to hear this, because it would help solve the nation's food problem. Asking how they could harvest the lily root without getting drowsy, Poncho said that there was a certain tribe in the Chaos Empire that used orangutans to harvest the special crop. Soma asked if there were any orangutans in the nation, and Poncho said that he had found some along the mountains, and that Tomo was helping them negotiate with the monkeys. After hearing this brilliant idea, the king told Poncho to go ahead with the harvest, so he and Serena began serving lily root dumplings and naan to citizens in the market square. The following day, Soma went undercover with both Juna and Tomo to explore the city of Van, and Tomo was carried away by all of the different shops selling beautiful items. Along the way, Juna held Soma's hand like a cheeky girlfriend, and when she asked him if he wanted her to hold something else,
What do you mean by that?
the king stammered and said that he was okay for now. Asking for advice on where to visit first, Juna told Soma that they should head over to a fancy clothes store so that he could get something nice for Tomo as a gift. When they got into the store, Soma told Tomo to pick anything that she liked so that he would buy it for her, and Juna decided to help her choose the ones that were trendy. While the girls were having fun, the owner of the shop met up with Soma and advised him to bring up his ideas at the last minute if he ever wanted to win an argument against a woman. Looking at the pair of shoes in his hands, Soma realized that it would be better to give them to Tomo afterwards instead, and he thanked the old man for his timeless wisdom. Soma was amazed by the beautiful gown that Tomo had chosen, and when they walked out of the store, he gave her the shoes, and she thanked him while fighting to hold back the tears. To thank her for always having his back, Soma also brought out a present for Juna as well, and when he placed the ladybug hairpin on her head, Juna blushed like a preschool girl. They bought some delicious lily dumplings along the way, and stopped at a park bench to enjoy them, after which Tomo fell asleep on Soma's laps like a cute baby sister. However, the peaceful moment was interrupted by the arrival of Jean from the Chaos Empire, who asked the lovebirds to spare her just a few minutes of their time. Soma said that it was dumb of her to visit Amadonia while he was still in charge, but Jean said that